is November 21st.
Ooh.
Man, I'm thankful we've gotten to this point. We're still alive. It's gonna be a fun show because the slate this week is awesome, and there are some topics that are both ones that a lot of people are talking about that are interesting to discuss, but also a couple that are maybe a little under the radar that are unique to this season, because we certainly weren't talking about it last season.
No.
But we're gonna start with some Super Bowl futures, and at this point in the season, if you are trying to go make yourself happy in February and you want to find some value on the Super Bowl, now is a decent time to do it. And I would go back to last year, and I would just think about, at this time last year, the teams that we were continually talking about that had value were the Patriots and the Saints.
Yeah.
And the Rams at this point were a team that people were just losing themselves over. And so it really speaks to the importance of finding good, consistent quarterback play and not getting kind of caught up in some of the hype that's been around there. So we're using lines that we found on Bet Online. I should just mention that. So make sure that you check yours. Okay. You have to place a bet on the Super Bowl right now. Your favorite one is what?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one that has the best value is New Orleans at plus 600. We would make it plus 520. So there's some value there. New Orleans not only to win the Super Bowl, but also to make it out of the NFC at plus 225.
I can't argue with that, because literally yesterday in our backroom chat, I argued that New Orleans is the best team in the NFL, and I've said that for a few weeks. I would just point out that number 2 in terms of value are the Patriots once again. And their path is just so much easier because they can basically breathe their way to home field. And think about the narrative right now with the Patriots is, wow, man, their offense is not very good. But in the past seasons that they've won Super Bowls, they've been talked about as being dead and gone at this point in the season. So I'm not worried about it. I believe that they have the pieces needed to score points.
The Patriots do a good job of not peaking too early, and I think like teams like New Orleans in 20, or was it 17, probably peaked too early. Probably the same thing last year. Kansas City, same thing last season. New England just kind of goes about their business on a week-to-week basis here. They, the win against Philadelphia was not pretty, but they got the job done. And as you said, their path to the 1 seed is pretty trivial in the sense that, they have Kansas City, but it's at home. You look at Baltimore, their nearest competitor. Baltimore faces 2 tough teams from the NFC West the next 2 weeks. They finished with Cleveland. They finished with Pittsburgh, and they also have the Buffalo Bills, which are not a trivial team to play against. So, and they already have a 1-game lead over them. They don't have the tiebreaker, but it's a good path for New England.
If you're looking at futures that are not as in the future as the Super Bowl, I'll tell you the one that there are a couple that interest me. I'll let you talk about the one that pertains to tonight's game here in a second. But going to my West Coast, the Seahawks right now, you can find them at plus 200 to win the NFC West. They're about to go into Philadelphia, play a Philadelphia team that is like the Falcons and will probably somehow lose that game. Whereas the Niners have Green Bay at home. They've got Aaron Rodgers coming back home, wants to show up his family members that are probably watching on a distant TV because he won't let them into the stadium. And that Week 17 game between Seattle and San Francisco is in Seattle. They have the MVP in Russell Wilson. So if you can find them at plus 200, we'd make it closer to plus 150.
Yeah, the thing about the Niners is they don't have an easy game the rest of the season, right? I mean, their simplest game is a home game against the Falcons, and the Falcons have been tremendous the last 2 weeks. And the thing about the Falcons
We're
is
gonna need to clip that so that we can play it back in 2 weeks.
The Falcons might very well lose the next 3 games, and in Falcon fashion, go into San Francisco and win like 31-3, right? So whereas Seattle a little bit better or a little bit easier of a road. So plus 200 there is a terrific value. Not a whole lot on some of the other derivatives. So there's one that I like in addition to the Seattle one, and that's Minnesota plus 800 to win the NFC. I think we would make it more like plus 750. You look at Minnesota, right? They, what's the path for them? It's to come back and win the NFC North. And if they come back and win the NFC North, there's a really good chance, given what we just said about San Francisco and Seattle, that they could get the 2 seed. And their home stadium's a really tough place for other teams to play in.
I can't decide what I would be more confident in. So if I'm not confident in Kirk Cousins as a favorite, I'm not confident of him on the road against a good team. Both those things are terrifying to me. Yeah. So I'm not sure what's better for them, to actually find a way to win that division and be a favorite, right? Or to be a wild card team. No one believes in us. No one believes in Kirk. Because anytime you get excited about Kirk Cousins, he just lets you down. Let's move to the MVP conversation. And everyone wants to argue about who the MVP is. It's not a question.
It's not an argument.
It's Russell Wilson. Kevin Clark, by the way, this is going to be partially a, hey, go check out good pieces of content on The Ringer, because they're friends of ours and they do great stuff. Kevin Clark wrote a really cool piece on the changing of the MVP guard. You should go check it out. But we're not going to argue for who's one, because it's Russell Wilson with a bullet. Who's number 2?
Yeah, I mean, I don't – for me, I think it's Dak Prescott. And people are going to ding him because there's a really good chance that they don't win the division. They're going to ding him because of his 9 interceptions. They're going to ding him because, it required Kellen Moore and Amari Cooper to come into the mix to actually get him to be a quarterback worth buying into. And again, we're talking about a guy who's a half a win below Russell Wilson in terms of WAR. But for me, it's Prescott, and I think that the biggest silliness right now is this idea that because his team is 6-4, he's immediately dismissed from the MVP conversation in favor of guys like Lamar Jackson, in favor of guys like Deshaun Watson, in favor of other players, Aaron Rodgers, for example. And we only have to look back like 3 years ago. Matt Ryan's Falcons team was 7-5 through 12 weeks, and then they don't lose again until the Super Bowl. He's MVP by kind of a country mile. There's so much more to be determined in the NFL season, and you can almost see it this week. If Dak Prescott and the Cowboys go into New England and win convincingly against the Patriots, Dak's the MVP next week.
Finally, the narrative that I've been begging for, which is Dak Prescott to show up as MVP in the MVP conversation legitimately, would come to fruition just like 2 weeks late. I respect your opinion. It's well thought out. It's wrong. Lamar Jackson has to be number 2. And just think about this for a second. He is so good that he is taking a team that really doesn't have a wide receiver. He's made them such a good running team that their rush offense would make a lot of passing offenses jealous, because it would rank above the NFL average at that respect. And it has propelled them to the number 1 offense in the NFL, despite not having a wide receiver that anyone knew of prior to last season. Hollywood Brown's been their best receiver, and he's not on the field half the time. Mark Andrews, 45 years old, he's their best receiver. Lamar Jackson is so dynamic that he is changing the way that teams have to play defense. His passing has improved. He is such a good runner. He's the best runner since Michael Vick. And it's not as though his athleticism is impressive, but his intelligence as a runner is so – he does not take hits. And as a passer, look, I know he's played some really terrible teams, but if you just take all of his plays and look at a per play PFF grade basis, he edges out Dak Prescott, and so that would be the trump card for me. But it is close. And here's the thing. It's all about how impressive you can be. A win in Los Angeles for Lamar would be impressive, but a win in New England for Dak would be even more impressive. Let me ask you this, so let's spin it forward. These two guys are interesting at the talking about with respect to both these guys.
Well, I think with Dak, we're wondering. If we're with Dak, we're wondering who. I just don't know who the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys is going to be. I think if it's Garrett, Dak regresses a little bit. If it's Moore, we might be seeing a guy in the conversation for consistently being in the top 8 quarterbacks that we always talk about. For Lamar, it's a lot of the same. And if there's any regression, okay, what kind of contract does he deserve after his 4th year? What kind of offense is this offense going to continue? If there's injuries to that team, which we know will happen, and they lose some games, like how does he respond to that? Because for me, the thing about Prescott's that's so impressive is that they're not playing from ahead all the time. They're It's not a perfect situation. We've seen Dak's good. We've seen Dak's bad. We've seen Dak from behind. We've seen Dak from ahead. We've seen Dak in the playoffs. We've seen
Dak's hips.
We've seen
from the front end,
and they don't lie. And the thing, but with Lamar, we've only had glimpses of the whole spectrum. For the majority of the time, Lamar Jackson's been the quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens. They've been ahead in games, and he's looked very good. And I just want to that's going to be the thing. I think that inevitable regression will hit. We saw it with Pat Mahomes. Mahomes this year is generating a negatively graded throw 5% more than last season, and we're starting to see like, okay, if that happens, what is the next result for the Chiefs? We're going to see more of that with Jackson, and probably less of that with Dak. I think we know who Dak is.
Dak is getting the benefit on your side from a weak supporting cast coaching. And I would push back on that and say, sure, but he has by far the better team around him.
Yes.
The offensive line is the highest paid in the NFL. He has Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. Zeke Elliott was just paid $90 million. Like, that offense is stacked. And so he better be having a good season. As I just pointed out, yeah, Lamar Jackson has John Harbaugh, who's great. And he has a great offensive coordinator who's doing wonderful things with the scheme. But he's got retreads, Gus Edwards and Mark Ingram at running back. Who are the wide receivers on that team? Right? He's got Nick Boyle and Mark Andrews at tight end. So to tell me that he has got this perfect situation and is just, frolicking in a land of bliss because of the things around him is a little bit much.
But they're ahead in a lot of games. I mean, and that does cover.
I think what we're talking about at the end of next season, after Lamar has to face a much harder schedule next year, is can they put the pieces around him to get them over the top? And with Dak, we might be having a similar conversation what we're having with Jared Goff right now, which is they paid him all this money, injury regression has hit, and it ain't so pretty when all the pieces around him.
Kellen Moore is not as brilliant as people think, et cetera, et cetera. And the Rams being the cautionary tale here, and maybe Dallas, who I think has some pretty smart people working for them, that might be the reason they've waited so far.
There's a person who isn't in the MVP conversation, but is on the outside looking in. And that's Derek Carr.
Yeah.
He's been very, very good. Now, he doesn't deserve to be in the top 5 or 6, but he's been a top 10 quarterback this season from a PFF grading standpoint. He has been the most accurate, now not adjusting for target depth, but he has been supremely accurate. He has cut down significantly on the number of boneheaded turnover-worthy plays that he has made. I think it's almost cut in half. So we would be quick to say the Oakland Raiders are 6-4, staring at the playoff berth because of what has happened to the passing game. And John Gruden is doing a great job, and Derek Carr is doing a great job. But there's a flip side to this that I wasn't expecting to hear about, that a friend of ours at The Ringer, Danny Kelly, wrote about today, which is the draft class. And so it's kind of a two-part question. How much credit would you give the draft class, and to whom would you bestow the credit for that draft class?
Well, I mean, okay, so the fact is people are giving Mike Mayock quite a bit of credit, and I'm not here to dig on Mayock, right? I mean, we are firm believers in this idea that no GM over the course of time is better at predicting above draft selection than any other. But there are people here, there was the tweet that came out that said, the Raiders draft class is leading the NFL in rushing yards, in sacks, in tackles, and all this nonsense.
Yeah, in volume stats.
And why are they leading in volume stats? They're leading in volume stats because the Raiders traded their best player last year for a bunch of draft picks. They also traded Amari Cooper as well. So they had 3 first-round draft picks. They also had a second-round pick and 3 fourths. So, if those guys play, and why do they play? They play because the Raiders have almost no good players on their roster other than Carr and a few offensive linemen. I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit on the Mayock praise. And here's the kicker for me as well. When you draft a guy in the 4th round who plays the same position as the guy you draft at 4th overall, and the guy in the 4th round outperforms the guy at 4th overall, to me, that's more of a self-own than, hey, look I found this gem in the 4th round at pick 106 and Max Crosby, than it is anything else.
The 2 best picks, the 2 best rookies, most important rookies, most valuable rookies to the Raiders this season have been Max Crosby and Trayvon Mullen. Not not Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs has been great, but he's a product of a good offense, and he is taking advantage of the situation.
And an easy schedule.
And an easy schedule. Now, I think Josh Jacobs is awesome. Again, I'm not trying to dig on him as a football player, but just he is not making as big of an impact as people think because they're looking at the wrong things. Whereas strong quarterback play, their secondary was an absolute disaster for the past however many years. Mullen has come in there and played really well. They've had zero pass rush. Right? Even with Khalil Mack, they had zero pass rush and were losing a ton of games. And now they have some guys that come in and, a fourth rounder is rushing the passer and doing big things. It didn't matter when they had Khalil Mack. It's not like as though Max Crosby has come in and been better than Khalil Mack. The reason that they deserve the people that deserve credit for them being 6-4 are John Gruden for making smart decisions, allowing Derek Carr to throw on second and long at the second or third, I can't remember which one it is right now, second or third highest rate in the NFL.
Yep.
New England and Dallas are the other two teams up there. That gives him more opportunities to hit open receivers, to invest in a passing offense that is dynamic. They're a top 10 passing offensive team, and that has not a whole lot to do with Mike Mayock's draft class.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, in the first round, you picked a defensive end 20 spots ahead of where he was mocked, a running back, and a box safety.
And by the way, the box safety has been injured
the whole season. So, again, Raiders fans, this is a perfect storm for the Raiders because I still don't think they're particularly good, but they've taken advantage of a situation that has been beneficial to them. They're going to go into Las Vegas with some hope next year, and that's awesome.
Can I say the one place where I would give Mayock credit? At least he's accumulated draft picks.
Yeah, but right.
So I'm not saying
the Antonio Brown trade, for example, he didn't have to give up that much, right? It wasn't that risky of a situation for him, especially given what other teams are offering. So we're not saying Mayock's been awful. What we're saying is pump the brakes on this idea that 11 weeks into his first draft class, he's some genius.
I'm still giving John Gruden all of the credit because he pushed the button on the Khalil Mack thing. That was great for that team. He's pushed the buttons with Derek Carr. So it's all about John Gruden. He should be a Coach of the Year candidate. And that is how we will segue into this week's slate of games. We have a very good slate. We're going to pick our lock of the week. First, it didn't go so well last week because Tyreek Hill got injured and Phillip Rivers just hates scoring touchdowns. And so the over did not hit in Mexico. If you have PFF Greenline, though, you saw that we had a lot of value on the Kansas City Chiefs. So hopefully you cashed in on that because they covered. And
our other two picks that were printed on the website went 2-0, including an under, which I know is against your religion, but sometimes you have to do that.
Well, I mean, look, currently my religion is just battling through picking a loser right now. So we're going to get back in the schneid. We're not on tilt. Don't worry. Good slate of games, though. So we've got 7 games that we're going to talk about here, only one of which I don't think we have a real strong lean, but it's Dallas, New England, and we want to talk about it. We're going to start Thursday night. Indy, Houston. This game is massive for this division. We wrote about it yesterday. You can go check it out on PFF.com. The winner of this game is just has a massive advantage to win this division and make it to the playoffs. We probably didn't expect this to happen at the beginning of the season. Your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, going into the year, if you did the mathematical, so even with luck in the simulations, there was some value on futures like Indy not to make the playoffs, Indy under 9.5 wins, all that kind of stuff. And so when luck retires, you're like, oh sweet, this is free money. And then we come back to the fact of why we were so high on Indy, which is that their coach and their infrastructure is great, and that's really carried them through here. A couple blips on the radar, but they're very much, both of these teams have a 46% chance to win the AFC South. Houston tonight, though, we give Houston a little bit of an edge, 65% to win this game, and as a result, moving forward, a sizable advantage in terms of winning the division.
Spread is 3.5 right now. If I have to go, it's very hard for me. I would immediately, looking at this, say, Frank Reich getting more than 3. I like that. But I'm worried about T.Y. Hilton. I'm worried about the Texans getting a lot of flack for a 6-sack game, a game where they didn't get a PI that they should have gotten.
Yeah.
They have by far the better quarterback. They have the better skill position players. And the gap between Reich and O'Brien is certainly there. But O'Brien has made some smart decisions. He has decided to be aggressive, make the logical fourth down decision at times that it really matters. And so I think I would actually have to take the Texans.
Yeah, we have these teams basically equally power rated, but it's kind of, uneven in the sense that Houston's defense is terrible, and there's not particularly any talent after J.J. Watt goes out for the season. But there's significant questions as to whether the Colts can take advantage of it. They've leaned a lot on the running game this year, which has been good against teams that I think are bad, for example, Jacksonville last week. But it remains to be seen as to whether or not they can, get out ahead of a team like Houston. Now they did about a month ago at home. But again, Watson, you look here okay, let's say these two teams are equally power rated. Okay, what tips the scales in favor of Houston? And it's the fact that they have the best quarterback wide receiver combo in the entire NFL in DeAndre Hopkins and Deshaun Watson. Last week, I think very fluky defensive pass interference, and also they took a sack on almost half of the pressure dropbacks.
Yeah,
so
most sacks he's taken all season.
And Watson, fundamentally speaking, has been decreasing his pressure rate week to week. He's not the highest pressured quarterback in the NFL anymore. He's very much a guy who's, I think, controlling it. Last week was a little bit of a blip. So I think the Texans rebound here.
I think a lot of people are going to like the Colts.
Yeah, so here's a question. I think the buy price here for me, if you can get Houston minus 3.5 even money, it's a play. I think if you can get Houston Houston minus 3 at minus 110, minus 120, it's a play. 3.5 minus 110 is not. So that's kind of the.
Yeah, I'm just talking about a lot of people out there have to pick every game.
And I think a lot of people, if you're given numbers in a super contest, I think a lot of people are going to take Indy plus 3.5, as you said.
Yeah, although luckily there you don't have to choose this game. You can just enjoy it. There's the potential for that. Pittsburgh goes to Cincinnati. They're coming to visit us for some reason, and they are 6.5-point favorites. Mason Rudolph's head is intact. They obviously had a pretty embarrassing loss.
More or less.
They had a pretty embarrassing loss to the Cleveland Browns last Thursday. So 6.5 on the road. It's less than 7. The Bengals are really, really, really bad.
Yeah, this has been interesting because it's sort of bounced back between being a value. So right now, if you can get Pittsburgh at minus 6.5, minus 110,
it's great.
But if you're offered minus 115, it's actually a different story. And this is sort of yo-yoed between. I think you're seeing people like both. The Bengals here have been a team that people have bet on a lot because they're like the 2017 Cleveland Browns, 2016 Cleveland Browns. And last week, if you bet the Bengals, you got the money. They played very hard. I think Oakland struggled offensively. They gave up a lot of pressure to the Carl Lawsons of the world. I don't see the Bengals being able to put together 2 good performances in a row.
The reason that the Bengals covered against the Raiders is the Raiders, who we just mentioned, really don't have a pass rush. They really don't have a very good defense. The Pittsburgh Steelers are a team that is going to turn Ryan Finley into the absolute disaster that he is, who he has not made a big-time throw yet this season. And 7% of his throws are turnover-worthy plays. The Steelers are the best team at getting quick pressure on quarterbacks. Ryan Finley disintegrates in this game. So if you can
they score though is a question, because we know turnovers are pretty unstable. That's why we picked Cleveland last week on Thursday night. I agree with everything you say about their defense, but
they also have the better quarterback, the better offense, the better coach.
Okay, because
don't tell me that Ryan Finley is a better quarterback than Mason Rudolph.
I think they're the same.
Stop.
I think they're the same. Mason Rudolph is trash.
Yes, Ryan Finley should not be playing in the NFL.
I think you can make a similar statement about Mason Rudolph, but I'm just saying.
No. Mason Rudolph should be a backup quarterback. Ryan Finley should not be in the NFL.
But my thing is you're laying almost a touchdown on the road. So I need capitalization on these turnovers, and so for me, I'm probably going to lay off this game because I just don't think the Steelers can reliably get up ahead 2 scores to make this spread.
That's fine. I'm just saying if you have to pick one side.
Cover. Oh yeah, I mean, fine, yeah.
Relax here.
I mean,
you act like I'm investing my mortgage, which I don't have, thank God, in in all of these games. But I agree with you. It's tough to really feel good about a team with Mason Rudolph at quarterback as a favorite on the road.
By a touchdown.
I would just point the following thing out, which is I live 100 feet from the Bengals stadium, and I see more people walking the opposite direction of the stadium in Bengals jerseys than to it. And I would anticipate that there are more Steelers fans than Bengals fans here, given the proximity.
Mm-hmm.
So keep that in mind. Carolina goes to New Orleans. Carolina was a darling of the NFL. In fact, I kind of liked them as an underdog in San Francisco, and they got stomped on. 9.5-point underdogs in New Orleans. The Saints, coming off of what was a very humiliating loss the last time they were in New Orleans, they go beat Tampa Bay. And we talked about this yesterday, and you pointed out, well, Drew Brees, he's not throwing the ball down the field. Can he put up the type of offensive performance that can beat a team by 10 or more? My answer is yes, because I think they're the most well-rounded team in the NFL, both offensively and defensively. They have the best offensive line. They have the best running back, the best wide receiver, that trio of components around Drew Brees. And their defense has made a jump from mediocre to top 10 across the board.
Yeah, their defense, I think, has been revelation. Really, not only at the top end, right, the Cameron Jordans of the world, the Marshawn Lattimores of the world, but also depth, right? So last week, Lattimore sits out against a team. Godwin and Evans are no joke. They're almost great. 2,000 yards receiving between the two at this point in the season, and they just they just move on. They bring Patrick Robinson off the bench. They bring Chauncey Gardner-Johnson off the bench, and those guys and they create turnovers. They create pressure. They don't stop the run. They stop the run really well, but that doesn't really kind of matter. So the question is like, okay, in this game, if I want to lay these points with New Orleans, I got to be fairly certain that Carolina is going to perform the way that they have offensively the last few games, which is trash. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's the case. And then, so if you're the Saints, you say, okay, well, how do they score? Well, the Panthers have been decent against the pass, but awful against the run. And the Saints, to their, sometimes frustration, but sometimes credit, have committed to giving the ball to Kamara and Latavius Murray in the passing game, also on the ground. And I think they control this game. I'm a little worried that it's 2 scores, but honestly, the Saints are so much better than Carolina here, and I still think there's some residual, Kyle Allen's this plucky story, and the reason this isn't like 13.5.
Yeah, Drew Brees does something that you want to see, which is he limits bad throws. He's the best at limiting negatively graded plays in the NFL. That's what he does. Kyle Allen, he's both bottom 5 in terms of making just negatively graded plays and turnover-worthy plays, like the really bad ones. And that is something that the New Orleans Saints are now able to capitalize on when they maybe weren't in the past. Carolina's, their only offensive weapon is Christian McCaffrey. Who would you rather have, Christian McCaffrey or Alvin Kamara?
Well, no, I'd rather have Alvin Kamara long term. But I think that the Panther. I mean, DJ Moore is good, and
he's not.
He's a weapon, but I don't think to the point about earlier is that I think the Saints defense shuts down both of these men pretty easily.
Okay.
So I would take Kamara, especially in this matchup. For me, for a lock of the week, though, the hard part is that you're laying more than a touchdown in a game where, like, let's say New Orleans turns the ball over early in the game and Carolina gets a cheap score. This is very similar. We had New Orleans against Cleveland week 2 last year, and it was just like the Saints are never going to get to the 2 touchdown. I mean, basically, again, as I talked about with the Steelers, to lay this many points, they have to be basically up like 17 with like in the fourth quarter for me to feel comfortable about this.
No, I'm with you there. The thing that gives me some hope is, and some reason to want to consider this as opposed to the other games that we've just talked about, which I think we wrote off. They are so good at home that it's such a big home field advantage. They were thoroughly embarrassed the last time they were at home. To me, they try to blow this team out. Like, I don't think this is a situation where, well, we just need to win this game. This is we want to make a statement type game. Speaking of, no, not speaking of statements. That was a stupid segue. Seattle goes to Philly. Seahawks, Eagles. Your personal preference on bird, Seahawk or Eagle?
Well, Eagle generally, especially given the spread here.
which is 1.5. So this is
depending on where it's all the way down to 1 in some spots, but yeah, 1.5. It's kind of bouncing between these kind of inconsequential numbers here.
So this immediately tells you all you need to know about how people view the Eagles at this point, which is kind of like the Falcons maybe.
Yeah.
Right? There might be a team that has some of the pieces that just continually underperforms as the sum of their parts. Carson Wentz has a 97 passer rating when clean. The NFL average is 102. Carson Wentz is not a below average quarterback. But Russell Wilson comes in, and the guy, even when he's under pressure, has a passer rating 10 points higher than Wentz when clean. So, like, the discrepancy between the way these two guys are viewed by the media is massive. Wilson can do no wrong. Wentz can basically not catch a break. He's top 3 in the league in drop passes, and they've just got injuries all over the place. So to me, that's the reason this is short. But I don't want to sleep on the Eagles because they lost to the Patriots.
Well, not only that, but all the things that all the things that Philly struggles with, except for the quarterback, Seattle also struggles with, right? So you look at the injury report for Seattle, and Jadeveon Clowney did not participate in Wednesday's practice. He basically changed the game last Monday night against San Francisco. KJ Wright's banged up. Tyler Lockett's banged up. Jason Myers, the kicker, is also banged up. And Seattle is a team that is poor defensively. I mean, the fact that the Niners couldn't take advantage of it was mostly a product of Jimmy G's inaccuracy and/or drops by his receivers. And we've seen and not to say that can't happen with Philadelphia. Philly's, I believe, a top 5 team in terms of producing drops. But Carson Wentz has shown the ability to put the ball on the money, and drops and pressure, all that kind of stuff is pretty unstable, right? So I don't think that Seattle is this juggernaut that people make it out to be anywhere but the QB position. And when you look at the QB position, okay, what does Wilson rely on? He relies on Tyler Lockett. Well, Lockett doesn't have the downfield speed with that injury. Metcalf, again, is a little bit green still. Josh Gordon, sort of anything can happen there. And the news of the week for Seattle is they got Ed Dickson back at tight end. So,
it's huge.
It's humongous. So I think this game plays to Philadelphia far more than people believe. And so I kind of like this. I like them at -1. I like them at -1.5. Honestly, all the way out to probably a shy of a field goal is probably a solid play. Yeah.
All right, we'll keep it in contention here. The Dallas Cowboys go to New England. New England is a 6.5-point favorite, basically exactly where we pegged it on Monday morning. We are smack dab at 50-50 in terms of what our model thinks.
Yeah.
Covering the spread. So I ask you got to choose one side.
I think you take the points with Dallas. This is the better quarterback getting points.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott, better quarterback than Tom Brady, according to Eric Eager.
I mean, it's Dak's playing better than Brady, and he has a better supporting cast.
All right.
What do you think?
I am going to fade the Dallas Cowboys after barely beating Jeff Driscoll.
Dallas is a team, absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean that's who's playing. It's not like Dak and Brady are boxing one-on-one. So to me, this is the opportunity that the Patriots had a couple weeks ago against the Ravens, where they have a team that's good. They haven't beaten a team that's good all season. This is their opportunity to beat a team that's good. Brady's pissed, by the way. He's really angry about the way that offense played. They get in gear. This will be a great offensive performance. The Cowboys defense, it's way overvalued. People think that's a great defense because they've got a bunch of big names that are paid a lot of money. I totally disagree.
Do think the James Whites of the world will have their day with those 3 linebackers for sure. But at the same time, again, like if I'm getting 6.5 points with Dak, like I firmly believe New England will win. But I think it's going to be one of those situations where Dallas gets in position to win the game and Jason Garrett messes it up, right? And
yeah,
so
but they're down 7 at that point.
I don't think so. I think I think it's a one-score. I think it's a field goal game. But here's an interesting part of this that I did not actually anticipate. Okay, this game is humongous. I think Dallas in the positive direction. If they win, their chance of winning the NFC East go up to 84% from 72% where it's currently at. If they lose, it only drops 5%. And again, I think a lot of that is, okay, Philadelphia's got a tough game at home. Philadelphia's basically got to win that game to stay in contention for the NFC East. Or, not really, but it's big. Dallas losing an AFC game is not as big of a deal as Philadelphia losing an NFC game would be at home. But Dallas winning, coupled with the chance that Philadelphia could lose at home to Seattle, would really put them in the driver's seat. So this is a big game. But if Dallas loses, it's not the end of the world. They're still at 67% if they lose to win the division.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. The Patriots are the best team in the NFL at making games that don't matter that much matter a heck of a lot. They are going to try and make sure they are playing the AFC Championship game at home and not in Baltimore, for example. So I anticipate Brady to come back and play well. Green Bay goes to San Francisco on Sunday night. Rodgers returning home. Now, this line has bounced around a little bit. We printed this morning in our article at 3.5. The Packers getting 3.5. It looks like it might be down to 3 now. Let's talk about it at 3.5.
Yeah, I mean, the issue here is we're basically taking plus 3.5 minus 120 for Green Bay. If you want to take only 3, you get plus 100. So we're really, from this perspective, we're implying plus 3.5 minus 120. So that's kind of, and we like that. I mean, Green Bay is a team that I think is really undervalued here for a couple of reasons. One is obviously they have the better quarterback in this spot. And despite what our friends on Twitter say, Aaron Rodgers is still an elite quarterback. He's, he's from a PFF WAR perspective, a top 5 player at this point in the season. He's got a great offensive line in pass protection, which, is a very solid, sort of, combating to San Francisco's defensive front, which is banged up now without Dee Ford. And they have one of the best wide receivers in the NFL in Devontae Adams, a type of receiver that San Francisco really hasn't been challenged against all season. And so there's a lot of things here that San Francisco's track record to this point is not going to be able to project against Green Bay specifically on Sunday Night Football.
The San Francisco 49ers have struggled mightily with the Arizona Cardinals twice.
The last 2 weeks, yeah.
As much as I love Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers is better than Kyler Murray. And the Niners defense has carried them against subpar opponents. They faced a decent opponent in the Seattle Seahawks, and it was a struggle for them. And they are going to have a struggle here once again because you can only do so much when you give a guy time. And I think Aaron Rodgers will actually be able, to have some time here in this game and to make some plays. So it's a situation where you have the better quarterback getting points and getting more than a field goal at plus 3.5. So to me, this is a Packers.
We also haven't
plus
seen
3.5.
Kwan Alexander was a free agent signing. We sort of derided a little bit, but he had generated some success as a 49er. He's out. The last 3 weeks, we have not seen teams that deploy their running back in a significant fashion in the passing game, right? Seattle's kind of boring offensively with respect to throwing to their backs, and Arizona hasn't quite figured that out. Plus, and Kenyon Drake had some success against them nonetheless on that Thursday night game. Green Bay is going to take those backup linebackers for San Francisco and have their way with them.
Rodgers 134 pass rating to running backs is first in the NFL.
So to me, this is huge. Also, on the offensive side of the ball, Jimmy G has gotten right against Arizona. That to me doesn't carry. You mean the 130 pass rating against the blitz that he's had against the Cardinals? The injuries to Emmanuel Sanders and George Kittle might not keep them out of the game, but it's going to keep them a little weaker than normal. Green Bay healthier off of bye, getting the extra day even off of the bye, or getting sort of the extra half day off the bye. I don't know. This is a play that, not money line Green Bay plus 3, plus 3.5, depending upon what you want to lay with the juice. Love it.
Let me tell you one more thing, which would worry me if I am a Niners fan, and I might be a Niners fan. the tackles for San Francisco have been absolutely atrocious. So Joe Staley's out. School is in his place and has been one of the 5 worst tackles in pass protection. Mike McGlinchey has been also a disaster at tackle. And the Green Bay Packers have the second or third best pass rush duo off the edge in terms of getting pressure with the Smith brothers. Jimmy G, as unstable as pressure is, can't seem to not throw the ball to the opposing team whenever something goes wrong, right? Like, you're guaranteed to get a couple just tossed right to you. So that is something that I'm not worried about with Rodgers. He limits those bad plays as well as anyone, whereas Jimmy G, I would expect to get a couple. And when you're the favorite, you don't want that to happen. Baltimore, Los Angeles, in Los Angeles on Monday night, Lamar versus Jared Goff. It's so funny how the narratives have changed, right? Jared Goff is like, oh man, this guy's the next great quarterback, and now it's like, whoa, maybe you spent a little too much money.
Well, which
Mr.
is what
Goff.
I'll say, because we got some flack on Twitter yesterday about Dak and us saying, us somehow saying Dak wasn't worth the max contract, right? If we're talking NBA, like Jared Goff last season was Dak.
Yep.
So just a reminder here. Yeah, very interesting that the Ravens have a quarterback that was picked at 32, and the Rams have one that was picked at 1. And we're seeing, drastically different results as a function of coaching and situation here. That being said, I don't know, man. The Rams getting 3, and not only that, getting 3 plus 100, which it would, again, be plus 3.5 minus 120 if you wanted to buy the half point, I think has some value here. I think you're selling the Ravens at the top of the market, and you're getting the Rams kind of at the bottom. I don't think people really look at that win against the Bears as impressive on Sunday Night Football.
Everyone's just talking about the Bears. The Rams are without Robert Woods, who's out for personal reasons. If he comes back and Brandon Cooks comes back, that's the first time Jared Goff's going to have all 3 of those guys. And that offensive line, look, Rob Havenstein had been an absolute disaster at tackle. Bobby Evans came in and actually played football. So there is an opportunity here to a team that has just been roasted left and right? They overpaid Jared Goff. They're trading away first-round picks left and right. And they're the underdog at home. When a Ravens team, we talked about this yesterday, I don't actually expect the Ravens fans to come in and take over that stadium. So it might be an opportunity here to actually get a better-than-average team at home getting points.
Yeah, letdown spot for the Ravens because they've
just been roasting everyone.
They took down Houston. They have some separation between themselves and the Chiefs, right? And Houston as well. They're just sort of sitting there waiting for the Patriots to lose a couple more games so they can possibly get the 1 seed. There's a lot there. And then here's the other thing. So the Rams defensively, I think, do some things that can stop the Ravens offensively. They have linebackers who are fast and can cover tight ends. They have safeties who can also cover tight ends. Their corners are going to basically shut down the wide receivers one-on-one, and that's basically what you have to do. Corey Littleton is one of the best linebackers in the game. I think he's top 5 in terms of wins above replacement. He's a guy that could has the athleticism to spy a guy like Lamar Jackson if they choose to do man coverage. And Aaron Donald's one of the best players in football, and I think he can hold a point of attack to a degree that the running back runs won't kill the Rams the way that running back runs killed Houston last week. I mean, Mark Ingram, Gus the Bus Edwards, and all those players, they had their way. I mean, there was the one highlight run by Jackson, but it was mostly the running backs that made all the money for the Ravens last week. So I think the Rams stack up pretty well here, and here's the thing that the Rams have struggled with offensively. Their offensive line has been bad. And I think that last week they figured it out a little bit. They held Khalil Mack to a relatively
one of his worst games of his career.
One of his worst games of his career. The secondary is where the Ravens do things offensively, but the Rams, when they're healthy, have one of the best wide receiver trios in the league, and Gerald Everett has emerged as a pretty solid receiving tight end. So I don't know. I think Rams +3 is a value here.
Yeah, there are a couple things that worry me a little bit about this. One of which is that the Ravens are pretty good at using play action, and the Rams are kind of an undisciplined defense. But I also think that this might be a place where the Rams can take advantage of the Ravens with some of that play action, and they're secondary is a little new. They like to blitz. They like to be aggressive. So they blitz almost 50% of the time. So if you can take advantage of some of those quick hitters with those receivers back, and you're an underdog, take it. All right. That is the list of games that are worth talking about / are in consideration. We should just like throw a dart.
I don't know. I mean, so you can go to pff.com. If you have an elite subscription, you can look at the 3 games that we printed out of these. But among these games,
all right, so we're throwing out Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm not doing Pittsburgh.
There's
not really a ton of value on Indy, Houston. There's not really a ton of value on
Right.
Dallas, New England. Those are games we just talked about because they're primetime.
They're good. So we've got Philly -1.5. We've got Green Bay plus 3.5 -120. And we've got LA +3.
Yeah. We also have New Orleans -9.
Oh, sorry. I forgot New Orleans.
Yeah.
Yeah. New Orleans -9.5.
So, yeah. I don't know.
Which one of these quarterbacks likes charity? Drew Brees likes charities, right?
He does.
He's got to care
He's
about
also
the kids.
laying a ton of points. My thing is, Philadelphia, I've said over and over and over again, are the new Falcons. So I have a hard time making the Falcons the lock of the week.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, let's go back to the well. The last lock of the week we've won was a road team as a dog in San Francisco.
Yeah, I am going to
with a
lean
better quarterback.
I'm going to lean with the tried and true better quarterback getting points at home.
Yeah.
Here, I will say this. I know that the Niners faithful are strong. I'm not so sure there won't be a bunch of Packer fans there.
Yeah.
Because this would be a game that you would have planned on going to.
Yep.
Right? You want to go to the West Coast, so I don't know. And here's the tough thing with the Rams. 1 week is not – I kind of need to see it, you know? Like, I think the things they did plugged some holes that you can win against bad teams with, and then when a good team comes in, it just kind of bursts your –
Yeah, I have a hard time getting in front of the Baltimore bus here. I don't think we've really gotten
one from Indianapolis.
Yeah, that's right, middle of the night. And we really haven't. This is the first time we've really seen value against Baltimore all season, other than a little bit with New England. So I think we do have these two teams properly power rated, but I have to go with Green Bay plus the 3.5 -120, just because I think that San Francisco has some underlying issues that we have not seen the full effects of yet.
There it is. All right, we're going to speed through the rest of the games here. You can obviously go check all of them out at pff.com/greenline with an elite subscription. You get all the NFL games, and you get all the FBS games. That includes all the bowl games. So if you are trying to get through family time over the next month and a half, that involves watching terrible bowl games. Bowl games are awful. I can't understand how people watch them.
You're such a Grinch about
They suck. Unless you have some vested interest in the games.
Exactly,
and
yeah.
this gives you a way to do it. You know, kind of like all the fundamentals about the teams, the good players, the bad players. It's the only way that you can actually get through the bowl games. So I recommend you do so. It's like, you know, most people, they go to a family event and they're like, I just need a drink. You just need PFF Greenline to make it through the bowl games with your family that you love so dearly.
You get to the first stage in life where you just need a drink immediately, and then the second stage of life is I need a drink immediately, and I need some skin in the Belk Bowl between Tulane and Tulsa.
Hey, Uncle Jim, the Almond Bowl, you got that one? The San Francisco Almond Bowl?
MicronPC.com Bowl was a thing for a while, which is, I mean.
What about the Pep Boys Alamo Bowl? You got that one on?
Just as a plug here, obviously George and I write our article with PFF picks for NFL games. Ben Brown writes his for NCAA. I believe he is 38-30 on the year, so he's done a pretty good job. It's a lot of fun. He does a very good job on his write-ups, as We also mentioned that we just talked about the Ravens. A couple of we'll plug some other content.
Timo wrote an awesome piece about the Ravens offense. You should go check that out. And if you were trying to get through the primetime games, Kev Cole's got math that you cannot believe that will give you some awesome ways to play DFS on primetime games. So you should check both of those.
Great additions to the stable here, and they're
we're a stable now.
Producing great content.
Is eggnog overrated?
I've never had eggnog before.
Wow, really?
No,
So what's your go-to drink during the holidays?
A glass of wine. Actually, multiple glasses of wine.
You're such a wine guy. All right, Tampa Bay, Atlanta. Atlanta is a 4.5-point favorite. I can't believe I'm reading that at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I will say the following, which is I would, again, not take the Falcons ever. So if I had to take one side, I would take Tampa Bay in this game. And the reason being is that the Jameis Winston car wreck was a car wreck and is now destined to be like an Uber Plus.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting this week is we don't have any value on totals in any game.
None.
And I'm very happy about that because totals are kind of bad. They're a sweat. But this is a game where you look at this and Atlanta really wants to play this game low scoring now. They want their defense to put their offense in positions where running the ball on first and second down is not the biggest tragedy in the history of the world. And Tampa Bay games are the exact opposite. Tampa Bay games, Jameis is third in the NFL in yards passing right now. If you add on interception yards, he's clearly going to be first. He likes to keep both teams scoring.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see what ends up winning out here. At 3-7, if you bet them over 6.5, you're really, you need them to finish 4-2. This would be a game in the right direction there. They do get to face the Falcons twice down the stretch. So I'm going to be hoping that we see good Jameis in this game, but given how the Falcons have defied us all season, we might see bad Jameis, and the Falcons turn the Buccaneers over like 5 times.
I've never had to do this, but I've heard that this happens quite often. The Falcons are the X that you like have to just. I'm deleting the number.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at social media. I'm unfollowing them. All of those things. I have done that.
You're putting your
Falcons.
Facebook stuff on private so that the Falcons can't even see it.
There you go.
That's how much you hate the Falcons.
Ben Stockwell just said, "Don't hate on the Chahrouri Boca Raton Bowl." I'm going to hate on that till the cows come home. Actually, I'm not because it's not worth my time. Denver Broncos with Brandon Allen face Josh Allen in Buffalo, and the Buffalo Bills are 4-point favorites. Who's the better Allen?
Oh, wow. I mean, this is one that I don't understand because when we had the podcast on Monday morning, which is, very good content, go and listen to it.
Great content.
We said that Buffalo being favored by basically only 5 or 6 was egregious.
Yep.
And Buffalo would be the side here. And then not only were we wrong with respect to our own models, but we were wrong with respect to the market because this has gone all the way down to 4 and then 3.5 in some cases. I can't get near this game because Brandon Allen is yet to throw a turnover-worthy play, which we know is just bound to happen. He does have more big-time throws per pass than Josh Allen, who's like a 4-to-1 guy in that ratio, turnover-worthy to big time. But Buffalo defensively, I think, is the best team that Brandon Allen is going to face. And if the Bills can score 2 or 3 touchdowns, I just don't see how Denver can overcome that.
I think we should be very careful to think about the Denver Broncos having played 2 games last week. They played a game in the first half where the Vikings pooped themselves. And then they played a game in the second half where they got thoroughly blown the heck out.
Yeah.
And the Vikings, as you have mentioned a couple of times, their defense, it actually isn't that great. And Noah Fant and Cortland Sutton were getting open kind of at will against them.
How do you throw the ball to Noah Fant on consecutive plays in the red zone to win the game when
I have no idea.
Dejo is covering Cortland Sutton?
I have no idea. I mean, that was blatantly terrible. But here's the tough thing. I could easily see Brandon Allen having a better passing game day than Josh Allen in this game. And so that is the reason that I would probably stay away from this game. Though I I mean, I'm not going to go against the math because I'm not an idiot, but this is a tough one for me.
Yeah, I push back a little bit on the 2 games issue, right? Because it sucks because when Denver had the ball to down by more than a field goal, they did drive the ball at will against the Vikings. They converted multiple 4th downs, and then it was just bad play calling at the end. So I do think Denver has the goods to beat a team like Buffalo. It's just like I think you're just buying them too high right now in a game like this at +4.
I'm here with you. The New York Giants go to Chicago. This game is just...
Who's the better quarterback in this game?
Daniel Jones.
By a country mile.
Well, I don't know. Is Chase Daniel playing?
Oh, yeah. If Chase Daniel's playing, then it's more of a push, right?
I don't know a lot about Mitch Trubisky. Like, poor guy.
Well, we were talking about this on Sunday night or Monday morning. It seems like Matt Nagy is trying to prove a point that he's bad, which I hate because it's like when somebody gets elected president and then they blame the former president for 4 years, right? It's like, no, you wanted this job.
Right.
You knew Trubisky was the quarterback when you took this job, and you made chicken salad out of chicken shit last year, right? With that offense, and all of a sudden, what? Like, you've lost it. They're one of the worst teams in the league on scripted plays, which was the narrative last season.
They're the worst. They're not one of. They are the worst.
Okay. Yeah.
Yards per play.
Yards per play. I'm more looking at EPA, which is like the Bengals, and those teams are like throwing pick sixes really in games. Yeah. But they're terrible, and they don't do anything to help Mitch out. Which, like, I hate to be an advocate for the guy after a full year of trying to say he's not very good, but like, does Nagy want to win? Is really a question here. And circling back, then Shermer, who has not been given much, right? They traded away his best receiver. The offensive line is still not particularly good, even though they invested a lot of resources in it. They drafted a running back at 2 overall as his first draft pick. Daniel Jones is a 103 passer rating when clean. Yep. Like,
he's above average, whereas Mitch Trubisky well below.
He looks like an NFL quarterback. Now, he makes a ton of turnover. Like 6% of his plays are turnover worthy. He looks the part.
What he looks like?
He looks like Mitch.
Last
year.
Looks like Jameis Winston. Because Mitch, as bad as he was, like, Daniel Jones just puts the ball up there.
Yeah.
Like, let's play 3 flies up. That's a little rough to compare someone to Mitch Trubisky.
Sure, but what I'm saying is when you watch, so when you watch a football game and you watch like Dwayne Haskins right now, and you're just like, that guy's not ready to play.
Well,
football.
I don't.
Yeah. Whereas you watch Daniel Jones, and you're like, okay, yeah, he just messed up here, he just messed up there, but he doesn't look like a guy who shouldn't belong on a football field, which is encouraging in year one, and I think a testament to Shermer. Trubisky has gone from a guy who looked like an NFL quarterback, a bad one last year, to not even looking like an NFL quarterback in 1 year, and I think Matt Nagy deserves a decent amount of criticism here for not wanting. It doesn't seem like he's done much to help Trubisky.
He just looks sad, man. He looks really sad. So if you can get the better quarterback getting 6.5 points with a team that appears to be in a better place mentally, which the Giants do compared to the Chicago Bears, then that's the side I would lean towards. The Miami Dolphins go to Cleveland to face the Myles Garrett-less Cleveland Browns. Speaking of a team that is in the wrong place mentally, that has been the Cleveland Browns all season. The Miami Dolphins are getting 10, but this line has decreased kind of steadily throughout the week, so you're not getting the best of it. Didn't it open at 11?
Yeah, at one point in the week you could have gotten it at plus 11, in which case there would have been value. I think at 10 now, it's a little bit under break even if you bet it.
And I'm just going to say
Dolphins.
this. The better quarterback this season is getting 10 points.
Jesus. Mayfield looked good for about a drive last week, and then
I hate to say it, I love Baker Mayfield.
Yeah. Well, so interesting thing about Fitzpatrick this year is he's not this turnover-worthy play machine. Mayfield has thrown twice as many turnover-worthy plays as a function of the number of passes he's thrown. Fitzpatrick also isn't making the big-time throws either, so he's like. He's condensed his game a little bit, and I think the Dolphins are better as a result. Hopefully, I think they honestly, I think that they try to run the ball too much, and maybe with Mark Walton getting like basically cut, and them only having Kalen Ballage and Myles Gaskins left on the team, they'll just let Fitzpatrick rip this week, and maybe that will help them cover the spread. But This game, I don't know. How many questions about whether Cleveland's back are we going to field next week at 5 and 6?
Oh, that's what you think you're going to field? Because I'm prepared for the Cleveland Browns just lost to the Miami Dolphins, and Freddie Kitchens has been tossed out the door. The Oakland Raiders are vying for a playoff berth in New York against the Jets and Sam Darnold. They are 3-point favorites on the road. This is incredible to me. And yet, I struggle to take the Jets as a home underdog. But I actually think if there is value here, I got to think it's on the Jets because everyone is so high on the Raiders right now, just so high on the Raiders. And people think the Jets are like the worst team ever, but I think they're in a different tier than the Bengals and the Redskins. Like they're somewhat functional.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be. We talked about this on Monday morning, but like, are we really setting up for the Sam Darnold as the highest graded quarterback over the last X weeks of the season again?
Mm-hmm. That's why we play the games.
Yeah, are we set? Because the Jets have a pretty easy schedule moving forward, starting, I think, with the defense that Oakland has. We talked about how they have been extremely, they've played above expectation despite not having a ton of talent. I don't know, man. When this was at 2.5, this was something that we considered.
Yeah.
And now it's at 3. I don't think you can lay a full field goal with Oakland here on the road. Carr, interestingly, higher passer rating when under pressure than when clean. So maybe you look for some regression here in Oakland. I don't necessarily know if the regression hits this week in the form of a loss, but let's wait and see on Oakland. Let's when it comes to watching the Jets, it's interesting because I think the NFL has a real stake in players like Sam Darnold playing well. So that's kind of, to me, that's the storyline of this game is, can Darnold continue to do some of the things that he's done over the past couple weeks that have been positive?
Derek Carr has a better pass rating under pressure than when clean. So like regression, it comes. Detroit.
Matt, we're on it.
Detroit Lions and no. The Detroit Lions play in Washington against the Washington Redskins. Yep, go to PFF Greenline if you want to know more about this game.
Yeah, we don't even know who the quarterback is.
Jacksonville is playing Tennessee in Tennessee. The Tennessee Titans are 3.5-point favorites. And here's what I would say about this game. Both these teams are below average teams. They're both not very good. Both of their quarterbacks are backup quarterbacks, if we're being really honest. So one team should not be favored by more than 3 over the other team. And so if I had to take one of these teams, I will take the Jacksonville Jaguars and my man, Nick Foles.
Yeah. Well,
and Christ, who's on his side.
Yeah, hopefully the Jaguars can pull through here, complete the season sweep of the Titans, and the Titans can be on their way to under 8.
You'd love to see it. All right, that is the Week 12 slate. It is a great slate. We will be back with you guys, as usual, on Monday morning. You're looking at me. Oh, yeah. The Cincy YMCA.
Yeah, you had a story, and I don't this week other than the fact that my jumper's been just wet all week. But that's not normal, but it's the truth.
It's a great story. Do you have more on that? Do you have any shooting tips for the people out there? What's your routine like? What's your warm up?
I don't know. It's just it's like Steph Curry. You just shoot a bunch of shots.
Okay. I have a couple.
Oh man.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go with this one. So, there's what's good scale etiquette in the gym? There's one scale. What's the etiquette? Like
wear underwear.
Really?
Yeah. I don't want you walking up there hanging brain while you're measuring yourself. You know how much boxer shorts weigh.
Okay. So I don't have a problem if you're really you really want to know how much you weigh. I get that. Here's my issue. If you're going to bother to take your socks and your boxers off, or your tighty-whities, or your thong, or whatever the heck it is, but you're going to wear a watch that looks like it weighs 6 pounds, Don't.
I still have the imprint from when you.
Please stop. Just stop. I weighed myself the other day, and I was waiting. Like, I knew someone was on there. So I also think it's proper etiquette to not sort of look at the person that's, like, currently weighing themselves, right? Like, that seems obvious. And so I went up there, and I can't believe that the person in front of me, who is whatever, totally naked, but has left, like, this massive, probably fake Rolex on while weighing themselves. And then I get off the scale, and there's just some bro just, like, 2 feet behind me. So I think
that's
proper
like bank
scale
etiquette. Like, don't go up to somebody and, like, look over and look at their balance and their bank statement.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Like, what? Come on, man.
What I don't understand is, like, why do they care? Like, it'd be different if the guy was like 400 pounds and you're like, is this guy really 400 pounds?
Yeah, right.
Or if somebody's like 4 feet tall and you're
pounds.
like, is that person really 87 pounds? But the like, I mean, you're like, you weigh a normal amount of weight. So I don't
no one's going to
understand.
be amazed by the weight that I clock in at. Anyways, that's my Cincy Y story. Be nice to the people on the scale is what I had to say. Enjoy week 12. Enjoy the Sunday night game. We'll see you after it. Thanks, guys. Peace out.